The High Court in Pretoria has heard the DA's urgent application challenging the suspension of Tshwane City Manager Johann Mettler and the reinstatement of the city's group CFO Gareth Mnisi. The party approached the court to review and set aside what it describes as unlawful council resolutions. Earlier this month, the Tshwane Council voted to place Mettler on precautionary suspension pending an independent investigation into allegations of maladministration, irregular appointments of senior officials, governance failures and other related concerns. On the other hand, the DA believes the charges against Mnisi, who testified at the Madlanga Commission on allegations of tender rigging, constitute serious misconduct. DA Tshwane leader Cilliers Brink joins us live now for more on what transpired in court. Good evening to you, Cilliers, and thank you so much for your time. Perhaps we start with, the decision of council, which is something that you're challenging. How did we get to this particular point? Because there is that matter of, your votes having not counted. What happened there?
Mettler emanated from the EFF, that is a party in the governing coalition in Tshwane. We don't believe that those allegations have any foundation. In fact, and we said so in the council meeting, but be that as it may, the majority of the parties, ANC, EFF, Action SA and their partners, voted for this investigation against Mettler. And then they also voted to issue him with a suspension notice. He then had the opportunity to respond, and it is what transpired at this meeting on the 9th of July, where the councillors considered Mettler's response, that is the issue of contention. On that day, Action SA decided to vote against their coalition partners, and so a majority of the councillors in Tshwane voted against Mettler's suspension as city manager, and also voted against Gareth Mnisi's conduct being regarded as so-called less serious. But because the Speaker rigged the vote, he adjusted the vote by subtracting 13 votes from the DA side, Mettler was suspended and Mnisi's conduct was regarded, or the allegations against him were regarded as less serious. Now, these decisions have got very serious implications. Unfortunately, the city's already proceeded against Mnisi on a non-serious basis. We believe in very bad faith. But the urgent matter before the court, and what we are asking the court is to set aside that council meeting because of the rigged vote, which would mean that Johann Mettler returns as city manager. And if the ANC-led coalition then want to suspend him again, they must do a proper council meeting and they must give councillors notice, and the Speaker cannot rig the votes to get the result that he would want.
And there is, of course, the contention that yourselves and FF Plus had, basically asked for a leave of absence, which was then granted, but then that soon changed. And then the subsequent votes were then discounted because earlier on, the Speaker said that you had asked for this leave of absence. So how then do you begin to reconcile the two as far as the rules of council are concerned?
So this council meeting happened in recess period. In other words, the time that councillors typically take leave. A 48 hours notice of the council meeting was given, which was late, without any explanation. And the council meeting, in fact, started without an agenda. Councillors were only told an hour after the meeting started what it was essentially about. By that time, 9 of the 13 DA councillors who had put in leave had attended the council meeting, were ready, and we informed the Speaker that they would vote. One councillor from the FF Plus also attended. So essentially, of the 13 DA councillors that had put in leave, 9 were attending the meeting. The Speaker indicated that he would not allow them to vote, but nonetheless, they voted. And what the Speaker did was he simply deducted votes from the side which the DA supported, 13, which doesn't make sense. Even if he were allowed to do such a ridiculous thing, such as tamper with votes, where does 13 come in? I mean, he can't even count properly on the illegality. But the simple point is that something like leave does not give the Speaker the power to disregard votes cast in a council meeting. He didn't do a roll call. He didn't order the councillors in attendance to leave the meeting. He simply arbitrarily deducted votes. He rigged a voting process, which is an egregious manipulation of a democratic outcome. And there's no way that this decision can stand. And listen, I mean, even in court, counsel for the Speaker had no defense really for the Speaker's conduct. The only thing that he can come up with was to say that this matter isn't urgent and that a review court can fix the mistakes made by the Speaker on a non-urgent basis, to which our response was, rubbish, this is a very urgent matter. An illegality has been committed. And in these 3 months, if Johann Mettler is left on suspension, very bad things can be wrought in the city of Tshwane because of this illegal act.
What are those bad things? Is that the reason why you're saying that this is more political than it is about the allegations? I'm going to get to the allegations in just a moment, but what are these bad things? And who will be committing these bad things?
Ngiwe, we've said at the outset that we fear that there's a political animus against Johann Mettler. And it's not just our version. You can go back the last 2 years where both the ANC and the EFF have launched extraordinary public attacks on their own city manager, Johann Mettler, who has been lawfully appointed by the council. And in each of those instances, their allegations have been baseless. And now, 4 months before a local government election, and after Mettler has, according to our information, turned down a number of tenders that would lead to irregular expenditure, suddenly we've got Mayor Nasipi Moya jumping on the instruction of her senior coalition partners, the ANC and the EFF, bringing charges against Mettler and pushing for him to be suspended. Now, if there were serious, fact-based allegations against Mettler, if the EFF in their complaint could refer to the grounds on which they make allegations against Mettler, even the DA would have considered that matter as serious, as we do the allegations against Mnisi. But the allegations against Mettler are vague, they are unsubstantiated. Our advocate today in court said it was almost as if the EFF had fed this stuff into a chatbot, and ChatGPT or Claude or something had given them a list of random allegations to throw at the city manager. So yes, we fear, as the DA, that Mettler stands in the way of a program of action of looting state coffers in the 4 months left of this council term by the parties in coalition in Tshwane. And that is the real motive, the real animus that they have against him. It's not because he has done anything wrong, but because he insists on doing the right things.
So let me get this correctly. Are you accusing these parties that are in coalition of wanting to loot state coffers? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That is exactly what I am saying. We fear that the ANC, the EFF, and Action SA, the parties in coalition in Tshwane, want to get rid of Johann Mettler, if only temporarily achieving his suspension for 3 months, in order to loot the state coffers in Tshwane. And we actually put an example of one of the tenders that Mettler has turned back to say that it is irregular. And we fear that the motive against Mettler is to have him removed so that these kinds of irregular acts can be taken by somebody who is more favorable towards the government. Let me just say this. Imagine you're in the position of the acting city manager. Your boss has just been suspended for putting his foot down. What kind of a message do you get then from your political principles? And that message is clearly that if you do the right thing, you will be punished. And if you do the wrong thing, potentially you'll be rewarded. And we think that that creates absolutely the wrong kind of atmosphere and work environment in a city as important as Tshwane. And that is why we want this illegality, the blatant rigging of votes, to get the suspension to be set aside on an urgent basis.
So you do have those in council who will not agree with you, who say that he's been suspended pending an investigation into what they're calling allegations of maladministration, irregular appointments of senior officials, governance failures, and other related concerns. And then you've got the CFO also coming out to say that the process, the disciplinary processes against him, he argues, were actually, he says, lawful, and they were concluded lawfully.
So let's just take each matter in turn, because the Mettler and Mnisi matters are distinct, although the results in those cases flow from the same council meeting. If you want to suspend a senior official pending a disciplinary investigation, there have to be certain grounds that you argue are present which call for that kind of suspension. You have to specify that the presence of that official during the investigation will lead to an interference with witnesses, it will lead to the destabilization of the city, or it would lead to any other kind of prejudice to the investigation. No such arguments were made with reference to any factual substantiation when the Mettler matter came up. And even the mayor herself, who had voted initially to have Mettler issued with an intention to suspend, even she, at the last hour, voted against Mettler's suspension. But putting that all aside, and that's the law, which is very important, a majority of Tshwane councillors voted against Mettler's suspension, and it is only by a rigging of the votes, by the Speaker subtracting 13 votes from the side against Mettler's suspension, that they achieved that outcome. And that is a blatant disregard of democratic processes, of the right of elected councillors to participate in a legislative meeting. And in fact, it is so outrageous that by itself, it probably justifies urgent relief. But what makes the matter worse, and Bongiwe, you should have been in court to hear this, what makes it worse is that this council that the Speaker appointed, the attorneys of the Speaker appointed to represent his case, he couldn't even make an argument for why the Speaker subtracting votes in a council meeting would be lawful. And so I think that case is clear. As for Mnisi, our contention from the beginning was we do not want to preempt the outcome of a proper disciplinary process. But we have to be very, very candid about the situation we face. Mnisi is accused of breaching the code of conduct for senior officials and the supply chain management regulations of the city. In particular, a forensic investigation has found that he did not declare his full financial interests as the CFO of the city for 2 financial years, that he did not declare the fact that he had a relationship with one of the bidders who stood to benefit from city processes. Now, by definition of the law, those are serious allegations. And if they are serious allegations, which are very clear from the regulations, the disciplinary regulations, then they must be treated as serious. And one of the sanctions against Mnisi must be, if he is found guilty, that he be fired. And so if you treat this as non-serious and you simply give him a written warning, then you are basically giving him a soft landing, and you're asking South Africans to unsee what we have all seen testified at the Madlanga Commission, which is an outrageous request which will undermine Tshwane's discipline and destroy public trust in our institutions.
Let's see then what happens, and it'll be interesting to also hear from the other parties in this matter. Appreciate your time. DA Tshwane leader Cilliers Brink there on the party's urgent application challenging the suspension of City Manager Johann Mettler and the reinstatement of the city's Group CFO Gareth Mnisi. Remember, those are 2 distinct matters in court. Their big fight is on the suspension of Johann Mettler.